everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the books I read between August 31st and September 6th. So I have officially been doing these for a year now, as I did my first one from September 1st through September 7th, and that means this is Recent Reads number 53. Crazy to think I've been doing this for a year. I've really enjoyed how these work. I am going to change one thing about them though, and that's when I tell you what book I've read, I'm also going to tell you whether they fulfill a prompt in any read-along or readathon or my own TBR game or whatever else I'm doing. That way you guys can kind of keep track with me. So with that out of the way, let's dive into what I read this week. First up is Murder in the Paperback Parlor by Ellery Adams, and I gave this book 4 stars. In this book, we're following Jane, who along with her great aunt and uncle run a resort that caters to book lovers. This is the second book in the series, and this time around it's almost Valentine's Day, and so the resort is hosting fans of love stories. Shortly after everyone arrives though, Rosamund York, one of the most well-known romance authors in attendance, is murdered. There is no shortage of suspects, as many in attendance had issues with her. Jane soon sets out to figure out who killed Rosamund before they can hurt anyone else. I am still really enjoying this series. I love getting to see Jane try to put the pieces together, and really she's trying to protect her business because this is the second time a murder has happened at her place of work, and she's worried that it's going to reflect badly on her business, and at the same time she's trying to shield her 2 young sons from all of the unpleasantness that goes along with murder. There is also a twist in this series that you learn in the first book that I don't want to give away, but really adds to my enjoyment of this series, and I definitely plan to continue reading this series and seeing what sort of book lovers Jane deals with in the next story. Next up, I read The Highland Falcon Thief by M.G. Leonard and Sam Sedgman, and I gave this book 3.75 stars. With his mom getting ready to have a baby, 11-year-old Hal is sent on a trip with his uncle for the final ride of a royal train. Once aboard, he ends up finding a girl named Lenny who has snuck aboard the train. The prince and princess join the train for the final leg of the journey, and things get really interesting when the princess's diamond necklace goes missing. This, on top of a few others' missing possession, makes them all believe that there is a thief on board. When Lenny is discovered, she becomes the #1 suspect. Hal knows Lenny is innocent, so he must use his observation and drawing skills to figure out who the real culprit is and clear Lenny's name. I quite enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed getting to see Hal settle into the train. He wasn't really sold on this journey, but as time goes on, he enjoys it more and more. I enjoyed getting to see his thought process as he started to put the pieces together about who had committed the crime and how they might have done it. I also really liked that Hal considered everyone a suspect, including his uncle, as he realized that until he could clear his uncle's name, he couldn't be sure that his uncle wasn't responsible. I enjoyed Hal and Lenny's friendship, and I really liked the setting of this being on a train because it meant all of the clues were contained on the train. Like, you knew it had to be one of the people on the journey, and so you had a rather small suspect list, and you were trying to figure out how they could have possibly committed the crime when in such close quarters. I really enjoyed the start to the series, and I will definitely be checking out more books in this series. Next up, I read The King of Crows by Libba Bray, and I gave this book 4 stars. This completed the prompt Finish a Series for Series September, Supernatural for the Fall Into Reading Challenge, and to read a book featuring ghosts, haunted houses, or other supernatural elements for the Magical Readathon. This is the last book in the Diviner series, and this series is a spooky historical fiction supernatural fantasy that follows a group of individuals who have special powers and are known as the Diviners. So I listened to this book on audiobook, and I listened to a giant chunk of the end of it, and the last bit of it, I was so into the end of the story that I listened to it at night and then had trouble falling asleep because I was that spooked. So this definitely has like the top end threshold for spooky for me. I really enjoyed the way things wrapped up in this series and how Libba Bray kind of pulled all of the threads of the story that she had been telling together. If you're into spooky historical fiction, supernatural fantasies, I highly recommend you check the series out because I did find it quite enjoyable. And like I said, this was the perfect way, in my opinion, to wrap up the series, and I found it very, very satisfying. Next up, I read The Edge of the Ocean by L.D. Lipinski, and I gave this book 5 stars. This book completes the prompt newest purchase for both Series September and Phase 10 Chooses My TBR, published in 2021 for the Fall Into Reading Challenge, and a book that keeps tempting you or is top of your TBR pile for the Magical Readathon. This is the second book in the Strange Worlds travel agency, and in this series we follow Flick, who in the first book has just moved to a new town with her parents and younger brother, and when she's exploring one day, she comes across Strange Worlds travel agency and ends up going on adventures to other worlds by traveling through suitcases. In this book, Flick travels to a world that has distinct boundaries, and unfortunately, the world is shrinking, and the boundaries are getting closer. And when people are on the wrong side of that edge, they just disappear. And so they have turned to Flick and the Strange Worlds travel agency for help. So Flick and her friends have to figure out how to help this world and its people when their world is slowly disappearing. I absolutely love this series. I love Flick. I love her friends. I love getting to see the new worlds that she goes to and how she is exploring the magic that she has found. I really enjoyed getting to see Flick's relationship develop with a new character we meet in this book named Avery, and how she really struggles with Avery being on this journey and the emotions she goes through during this journey and how her feelings change towards Avery throughout the book. This book sucked me in from the get-go, and once I started reading it, I didn't want to put it down, and I am so sad that I have to wait for book 3 because I want to see more of Flick's adventures and the worlds she travels to. Not to mention that the end of this book left in such a place that I really can't wait to read book 3 because I want to know what happens next. This is definitely a new favorite series of mine, and if you haven't checked it out, you really should. And lastly, I read Crowfeather's Trial by Aaron Hunter, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. This book fulfills the prompt to read a book that is set largely in a forest or outside for the Magical Readathon. This is a super edition in the Warrior series. If you're new to my channel, I've been working my way through the Warrior series this year, and Warriors is a series about groups of forest cats who live in clans and try to coexist. Super editions take a deeper look at one specific character, and in this case, we're checking out Crowfeather. The events of this book take place right after the 6th book in the 4th arc of 6. And honestly, Crowfeather isn't one of my favorite characters. I've never been particularly fond of him, but this book has given me a completely different perspective on Crowfeather. I still don't think he's going to be one of my favorite characters, but I definitely have a far better understanding of him and his motivations now that I've spent some time in his head. I really enjoyed getting to see Crowfeather and his life in WindClan, and how the decisions and choices he has made in the other books in the series, which we've seen from other characters' perspectives, at least to some extent, have shaped him into who he is and the role he has in his clan. I enjoyed getting to know some of the WindClan characters that we've seen in the other books, but we don't really know much about, and I definitely think this is going to give me a new appreciation for not just Crowfeather, but like I said, other WindClan characters, as I now know a bit more about them. And it is going to be interesting to see if any of the knowledge I gleaned in this book in reference to these WindClan characters will play a role in the way I see things if I should encounter these characters in the broader series. I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did because, like I said, Crowfeather wasn't my favorite character. But I did end up really enjoying this, and I have a newfound appreciation for Crowfeather and everything he's been through. So these are some of the books I've read recently. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you think of them in the comment section below. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a bird emoji, like this video, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!